We've spent a lot of time exploring the interface of AutoCAD in the previous chapters and sections. I did this because I wanted to make sure that you knew how to work in AutoCAD and that you were comfortable navigating it. But enough is enough. Let's learn how to draw. That's why we're here. The focus of this section and the next few chapters will be on how to draw in AutoCAD. It's likely that the most common object used or created in AutoCAD, especially for 2D drawings, is the line. You will use lines, to create lines. You will use lines for construction. You will use lines to find your right place. You will use lines in so many different ways. The line is universal. A line is defined as all of the points between two specific points. So it's also one of the most easiest objects in AutoCAD to draw. You just pick two endpoints. Just 2 clicks of the mouse and you're there. But even though a line is very simplistic, there are many ways to draw a line in AutoCAD. To start the line command, you can go to one of several different places. You can use one of several different methods. It's up to you. On the ribbon, on the Home tab, the first panel, which is the Draw panel, you have the first icon, which is for the line command. Click that, and your command is started. Remember to follow the command prompts in your dynamic input and on the command line. They will tell you what you need to do. Obviously, now we need to draw our first point. Click one, anywhere. And now as you move your crosshairs with the mouse, you can see where the line is going to go. Your dynamic input will give you information about that line. Right now, this line, if I were to click again to create the second endpoint for the line, would be 14.28 units in length and drawn at 17 degrees. Very simple. Once you click that second point, you can continue drawing from that last endpoint to create another line. And you can keep going until you finally decide to stop. Press the Enter key, press the Escape key, right-click, or hit the space bar. And that's it. And that's how you draw a line. That is the most simplest way to draw a line. It's to pick 2 points. Now, there are many other ways that you can also draw a line. A lot of times, a line is not arbitrary. In fact, the majority of the time, you need to draw your line in a very specific way. Well, there are many ways available to us to do that. If you're starting a brand new drawing, it can be difficult to figure out where to start. I suggest that you find a line that you can use as the base of all of your other lines and go from there. In this example, we will draw a very simple outline of a house. Let's erase all of these lines. Type in E, then Enter for the Erase command, then select everything. Or you can select everything and then hit the Delete key. So let's start a new file. Type New on the command line. Browse to the template folder if it didn't open up there for you already. And let's start with the Tutorial.I Arc DWT file. Click Open. This file will probably open up for you in what's called Paperspace. We'll talk more about Paperspace later on. We've mentioned it before already, but we want to make our drawing, create our model. And you put your line work in the Model tab. So come down to the bottom of the screen, find these tabs, click on the one that says Model. This is where we're going to draw. Quickly check your units. Type in the word units and make sure we're working in architectural type. Precision of 1/16 is fine. More importantly, we want to make sure we're using inches. And click OK. With this setting, we will be drawing as 1 unit equaling 1 inch. We will be drawing everything in inches. So let's start the line command. Let's put our first point at the origin or at coordinates 0, 0. So come up to the ribbon, click on the line command, or just type in the word line or just the letter L. Since we have just started the command and have not picked up point yet for our first point, AutoCAD is assuming that we're looking for coordinates. So type in 0, 0, press Enter. Now remember, while you're in a command, you can use your mouse to pan around or zoom in and out as needed with the middle scroll wheel. We're going to draw a horizontal line 50 feet long to the right. Now, when working in architectural units, you draw in inches. There are 12 inches to a foot, so 12 times 50 equals 600 because we want to draw a 50-foot long line that's horizontal to the right. So you can do that math all the time if you would like to, but I suggest you don't. You can type in 50 and then an apostrophe for 50 feet. And if you need additional inches, like 6 inches, you can type that in. But 50 then apostrophe will draw a line at 50 feet long. Now, to draw this line horizontally or to the right, you can do that one of two different ways. The easiest way is to toggle on your ortho by pressing the F8 key. Just like that. Or if you don't toggle it here, you can come down to your status bar and click on the button here. This is the ortho mode button. Ortho mode will lock your drawing cursor or crosshairs into drawing orthogonally, which means just a horizontal line or a straight up and down line. Your line or your object or your movement will be constrained to following one of the two axes, in this case the X and Y axis. So we draw our line, we pull it to the right, and we type in 50 feet and press enter. Press enter again. Select the line. Hover over one of the blue boxes or the grips and you'll see that this is a 50-foot line. Excellent. Now we want to start the line command again. Press the enter key and that will automatically start the last command you were using. Type END for end or end point. This is an O snap we're going to use. We'll go into greater detail about O snaps, but O snaps will help you draw precisely. They will grab specific places on your objects, like the endpoint of a line. Move your crosshairs over to that endpoint of the line on the right, and you'll see a green box or glyph come up, and the word endpoint. It's telling you that you are grabbing the endpoint of that line. Left click. Now we're drawing our line again. We want to make this line 30 feet vertical. With the ortho still on, move your crosshair into the direction you want the line to go. Type in 30 and then the apostrophe. If you leave off the apostrophe, AutoCAD will assume you mean inches. And we don't want 30 inches, we want 30 feet. If I move my crosshairs down to the bottom, then the line will go down. Or if I type in a negative 30 with my crosshairs up here, it will also go down. But so far we're correct. Press enter. There's our line. Let's draw another line 50 feet to the left. Now remember, AutoCAD is directional. Whichever way I move my mouse, that's the way the line is going to go. I can tell it 50 feet, and it will go in either direction in which I'm moving my crosshairs. So move to the left, type in 50 feet again, and press enter. And now we want to come down. We can just snap to the endpoint here, or we can tell it to go 30 feet down. Whichever one you want to do. Press enter. And there is the start to our side view of our house. And that's what you need to do. When you start a drawing, you need to make sure that you put in a line that you can work with. A base point, a starting place. Once your lines are in, then you can base everything else in your drawing off of that. It gives you a starting point. You can also draw lines in many different ways. You can draw them at angles. Now let's put in a roof. Let's go to the top right corner. Over here, start the line command again. Go to this endpoint. Press E and D, enter, pick that line, and now let's go to the right 5 feet. Or you can type in 60 inches, which is the same thing. And that gives us our 5-foot line. Now let's go to the other side and do the same thing. Start the line command, type in end, grab the endpoint, go to the left 5 feet, enter. Press enter again, and here we go. Now you can also draw lines in what are called polar coordinates. A lot of the times we're drawing in a Cartesian coordinate system, but AutoCAD will also allow us to draw in polar coordinates. Drawing in polar coordinates means that you will be drawing lines based on length and angle, not just distance or direction. To do this, start the line command, pick a point, turn off ortho, type in a distance, 12 feet, press tab, and then type in an angle, 35. There you go. That is a polar coordinate, a distance and an angle. You'll find that you'll use this trick time and time again. Let's use it now, actually, to draw in a roof gable. Erase this line. Now let's draw the gable. Start the line command. Type in end for this endpoint. Put in a distance, 40 feet. Press the tab key. And I've predetermined already ahead of time what angle we're going to need. Let's type in 138.59. Press enter. And there you go. That draws a line right to the middle of our roof. Type in E and D again, and click there. That's a pretty steep roof, I know, but we're learning how to draw in AutoCAD with lines and with polar coordinates. A lot of times in AutoCAD, all you'll have to do is draw half or part of your object, and then the rest will automatically fall into place. Similar to this last line when we drew, and then this last roof line. Now, one thing that we can do, and let's erase these two pieces. So we can draw to other points besides an endpoint. Start the line command. Type in MID for mid or midpoint. Press enter. The triangle glyph will show the midpoint. That's the middle of our house. Turn on the ortho command. And let's draw a line up 20 feet. Press enter. Now we know where our peak on our roof is going to be. Start the line command again. Type E and D. Type E and D again. Press enter. Pick that point. Now type E and D again. Enter. And if you mess up typing in the dynamic input, you can always go back. If you type in something that's not possible that AutoCAD doesn't know what to do with, you saw that red box come up and it says, hey, I don't know what to do this, please tell me again. And that's fine. You can backspace or delete what's inside there and type again. You can also use your arrow keys to navigate inside the text. As you can see there through my examples. And there we go. Now we can delete that line. And that's basically it in a nutshell. But before we go, let's review something about drawing with coordinates. If you enter in coordinates for the first point in your line, as we did to start our house, they will be absolute, meaning that those are the coordinates where your first point of your line will be drawn. If you enter in coordinates for the second point, they will be a relative distance from that point. So if you need to draw your second point to an absolute set of coordinates, start it by pressing the pound key. Then enter the coordinates. For example, start the line command. Enter in 5, 4 for the first point. That is an absolute point. That is going to the coordinates of 5, 4. And that will be in inches in this case, as you can see where it is. Now type in 6, 4. These are relative coordinates. It went not to coordinate 6, 4, but it went 6 units over, 4 units up from our previous position. Exit out of the line command. Start the line command again. And this time type in 5, 4. And remember, your first point will be absolute points. There is no other point for it to be relative to, so that's why. Press enter, and we're starting at the exact same starting point as we did with the other line. Now, type in the pound key. Then hit 6, 4. Press enter. Enter again. Two very different lines. this line and this line both start at coordinate 5, 4. Now the coordinate for this one is at 6, 4, which is what we told it to do. Now we told this one to go over 6 units and up 4 units. So it is at coordinates 11, 8. So keep that in mind. A lot of times you will find drawing in relative coordinates. If something needs to be 20 feet long or 20 meters long, you can tell it, I want to go 20 units to the right and 0 units up, and you have drawn an horizontal line 20 units in length. So that's the basics of drawing with lines. There are a lot of different ways to do it, through absolute coordinates, through just random points, picking the first and the second point, through object snaps, through distances and angles, and through other coordinates. A lot of the times, you will just start a line, making it very long, or at least long enough, and going from there. If your coordinates are irrelevant and you don't care what coordinates you are in, then try to draw close to 0. That will make things a bit easier to manage in the long run. If lines are single-segmented objects connecting 2 points, then polylines are line segments in a connected sequence created as a single object. That means that they're lines, or maybe even arcs in some cases, with multiple vertices. Polylines are great for contour lines, wire diagrams, piping drawings, extrusion profiles, pathways, or even a closed object. When a polyline is closed, meaning that there is no real beginning or end, it's called a polygon, which is a closed, multi-sided shape. You can create a polyline with several different commands: p-line or pline, rectang, polygon, donut, boundary, and even rev cloud. Pline or p-line, depending on how you want to say it. Because it's just the letter P, then L-I-N-E. That will be your most commonly used command to draw a polyline with. And we'll talk about the other options in a later section. Each of them have their place. In fact, we've drawn many polylines already using the rectangle command. I like to use the rectangle command as a great example because it's very quick to do. 2 points, and you have a nice shape that's easily defined, seen, and worked with. But drawing a polyline can be accomplished using the exact same methods that you draw a line with. So the previous section here in this chapter will be applied directly to a p-line exactly in the same way. After all, a polyline is just a set of lines that are connected together. You can draw a polyline, or p-line as they're often called, just using coordinates, relative coordinates, polar coordinates, length, just 2 points, etc. Lines can also be drawn as arcs. You can even switch from line to arc while you're drawing a polyline. And when you go to edit them, you can do the same thing. Polylines are very versatile and have many functions. In fact, I know several CAD drafters that don't use lines. They use p-lines because you can do things with them that you can't with a regular line. So start the polyline command. You can come up right here in the Home tab on the ribbon to the polyline, and you can see that it has multiple points here. Or you can type in p-line. The command alias for polyline is just PL. And that's what I typically do. I'll just type PL, then press enter. And drawing a p-line looks just like drawing a line. Pick a point. I will turn off my ortho command. Pick another point. And the nice thing about lines and polylines is that when you're done, you can type in CL for close, and it will close your object. You can do the same thing with a line. Type in line, and just pick at least 3 points. Hit CL, and it closes it. It will draw your line or polyline segment from the last point you entered to the first point you entered. This is a line. To pick this triangle, I have to select each line. Each part of this triangle is its own object. Now in this shape, a polyline is only one object. Now I can grip edit this very quickly, changing the shape dramatically. I can even convert them to an arc and stretch them out. So very quickly I turn that odd shape into an even odder shape. You can't do that with regular lines. I can move it and things like that, but that's all. So polylines are a bit more versatile than a regular line. Let's erase these and get everything out of our way. Let's start with the polyline command again. PL. Pick a point anywhere. Let's draw a vertical line 10 units long. Turn on your ortho command and type in the number 10 for 10 units. You may have to zoom in or zoom out depending on where you're at. Now, as you draw, you can do different things. Let's turn the ortho command off. And as you see, down here, we have many options for the polyline command. We have arc, close, which we showed you already, half width, length, undo, and width. Most of the time, you're only going to use arc, close, and width. Now, a line has a width of 0, but a polyline can have a width added to it or set to it. A width of 0 means it's just the arbitrary default width on your screen. If you set a width which will be controlled in units, the actual width of that line will be that wide. We'll look at that in a little bit. But type in the letter A, press enter, and now we're drawing an arc. This arc will be tangent to the previous line that you drew, as you can see here. You will be deciding on the chord length and relative to your last line. And you can continue drawing arcs just by picking points. And they will all be tangential to each other. Now, to draw a straight line again, hit L, enter, and now you're drawing a line. Now, that line will not be a tangent line to that last curve. It just starts from that point and continues on to wherever it is you pick. You can come up with some very interesting shapes with the polyline command. After you draw a polyline, you can use the P-edit command for polyline edit. You can do that to make changes to it. Type P-edit right now and press enter. And select the polyline. This command has many options available. You can close a polyline into a polygon with the close option. It will draw a line from wherever you were on your last point to the first one. Now this is a closed shape. The join command or option will combine other polylines together into one polyline. But keep in mind that their endpoints will have to be at the exact same places to be joined. You can use what's called a fuzz factor that will draw a segment in to fill the gap if necessary, and you give it a maximum size. So if your gap is at least this big or less, it will draw a segment between the gaps. You can edit a vertex by moving it, taking it out, or adding a new one with the edit the vertex. You can also change the width of the polyline. Let me show you. If I click width and I type in 1 for 1 unit, that line becomes very thick. I can also make it thicker. I can keep going. Type width again, type in 0, we'll put it back. Now, what happens if you put in a negative width? Click the width option, type in -5. Nothing. It must be a positive number. Just press escape to get out of the polyline edit command. You can turn other objects into polylines using the pedit command. Start the command and then select your objects. So if we have lines, like this shape here, it consists of 4 different lines. We can change them into polylines. Start the polyline edit command, press enter, and now select your objects. And it will ask you, do you want to turn it into one, meaning a polyline? Because as you see on the command line, it says down here, object selected is not a polyline. Do you want it to turn into one? Hit Y for yes. And now we can join it to the other lines. Press enter, and enter again to close the command. Now you see, this is one polyline. And any object like a line or an arc can be turned into a polyline. Polylines are a bit more versatile. You can do a lot of things with them. We'll look more closely in how to edit them in later sections. But polylines are great, and you're going to use them, and I encourage you to, because you can do other things with them as well. Since they are a closed object, you can very easily create a hatch inside them. That fast. You can change your pattern very quickly, very easily because of it. You can't really do that so much with lines. You lose some control over it. But we'll talk about hatches later and other things that you can do with polylines. You can draw lines and polylines now, and now you're going to need to know how to draw circles. Circles are used for many things: holes, different designs, wheels, gears. I can go on, but you get the idea. A circle is very simple. In geometry, it is defined as all of the points that are equally distant from a single point. To draw a circle in AutoCAD, use the circle command. Just type circle on the command line, or just the letter C for the command alias, or click on it up here in the Draw panel on the Home tab in the ribbon. By default, you will be asked for the center of the circle as the starting point. Pick one, anywhere. Then you will be asked for the circle's radius. Enter in 10 units in this case. Press Enter. Zoom in or out if you need to. Now there's your circle. Very simple, very easy to do. You may, though, want to create a circle according to its diameter. Start the circle command again. Pick your first point. And now instead of clicking your point again, you can go to the command line and click on the diameter function or option, or type in the letter D. Remember on the command line, when it gives you additional options, and they're highlighted here, the blue letter at the very beginning, which is typically just the first letter, but will oftentimes include the first 2 or 3, that's all you'll have to type in. You don't have to come down here and click. Just hit D for diameter, press Enter, and now type in 20. We just drew the exact same circle, and just in a different way. That's important to know, because sometimes you have the diameter, and sometimes you have the radius. So, well, if I have one, I know what the other is. That's true, number-wise, but oftentimes when you're drawing in AutoCAD, for example, if I have this line and this line, and I need to draw a circle, what do I have? Do I have a radius or do I have a diameter? Well, that depends. If I start circle and I draw from this endpoint, and I want to draw to this endpoint, I have a radius, not a diameter. That's true. But if I want the circle to come to the middle of these two lines, I will need the diameter. I'll show you the difference. I'm drawing with the radius now. So I will type in end for my endpoint and draw there. That's my circle. Let's start again, the circle command. Type END for endpoint. We're snapping to the endpoint of this line. But now hit D for diameter. Press Enter. As I stretch, I'll type in end again and go to the endpoint of that line, and there you go. I just found the middle point between these 2 points and drawing a circle. You'll find situations similar to this while you're drafting. You won't always have just the radius. You won't know where the center point is. You won't know where the end point is. You'll need to have to draw a circle in a different way. Well, that's good, because you can. There are other ways to draw circles inside AutoCAD besides using the center and radius or center and diameter. Those other methods are drawing a circle by 3 points about the circle. Another one is by drawing 2 points about the circle. And then the third option that you will have here in this list is drawing at 2 tangent points and a radius. Say, well, how will I know when to use what? Well, that's great. We'll look at an example. Open up the file that came along with this training video from the 5th project chapter and go to the Circle and Arcs example file. Click Open. This is a very simple example of some ways to use the different methods of drawing a circle. The 3-point option allows you to draw a circle based on 3 points along the circle. So start your circle command, and instead of picking your center point, click on the 3P option or type in 3P. So let's say we have these 3 lines. We don't know where our center is. We don't know where anything is really. All we know is that we need to come from the middle of this line, the end of this line, and the end of that line. And our circle needs to go about those. So let's pick our first point. Type in mid for midpoint, press enter. Look for the green triangle glyph in the midpoint tag, click. Now type in E and D for endpoint, enter, and click up here. After we get 2 points, AutoCAD will generate a preview of our circle. It will always pass through the midpoint here and the endpoint there. We don't know the radius or the diameter or the center of the circle, but we do know that we need it to pass through the endpoint of this line here. Press enter, and there you go. We drew our circle. Very simple, very easy to do. Let's try it again. Type in 3P, enter. Pick 1 point, pick 2 points, and now the 3rd point. And there you go. The 2-point option works exactly the same way, but with 1 less point. Let's draw it. Start the circle command, type in 2P for 2 points, press enter. Now I want to show you a new object snap. It's called quadrant. Just type in QUA, and this will snap to the quadrant of a circle. And that means either the left or right most points, or the top and bottom most points. If you look at the center of a circle and draw a plus through it, a line straight up the y-axis and a line straight across the x-axis, these are the points on the circle that you will snap to. Pick here. And now we can have our circle go anywhere. We can draw a lot of different shapes. If you turn on your ortho command, just as we did with the line and polyline, we will draw this circle either across the y or the x-axis. There we go. Press enter to start the circle command again, and the circle command will always default to the center point radius drawing method. So if you want to do anything else, you have to tell AutoCAD that you want to do it differently. Type in QUA again, and there we go. This is a good start to a snowman. Now let's look at the other option that was available to us. If you start the circle command, you can see we have the 3P, 2P, and the TTR, or the tangent radius. Just type in the letter T and follow the instructions on the command line. It's asking us to specify the point on an object for the first tangent of the circle. So let's say we have these 2 angled lines. We want our circle to be tangent to this line and tangent to that line. So you will see that the glyph is up here of a tangent line with 3 ellipses. That means it will draw it tangential to this line, and now to this line for our second point, and now we have to give it a radius. Let's give it a radius of 5 units. Press enter, and there you go. This circle is tangent, as you can see, to that line here, and it is also tangent to this line. That can be very useful when you're trying to figure out an arc for 2 different ends. If you use the trim command, just type in TR, press enter, select everything, hit enter again, click the circle, and then click the line, and then the line. And now you've created a nice rounded corner for your object. When you type in a radius or diameter for a circle, you can either type in the value, but you don't always have to do that. You can just pick your point. So keep that in mind. The 3 parallel lines that we had here were 3 units apart, but you can pretend you don't know that. Just draw a circle. We're going to erase this one first. Start the circle command, pick an endpoint, And then for the radius, you can pick the endpoint again. And there you go. I didn't know what that radius was, but they are at 10 units apart. You can draw circles in a lot of different ways with a lot of different methods. Which one you pick will depend on the information you have and what you're trying to create. There will be many times when you need to draw an arc. An arc is a portion of a circle or an unclosed circle. When a circle object is broken, it becomes an arc. There are many ways to draw an arc. Make sure to pick the one that suits your situation the best. I'm going up to my File tabs. I have them open for this time. Right-click on the File tab area and click Open. Browse to this section and look at the file called Arc Examples and open that one. So here we have some line work already created for us. Bit of a little caliper or bracket and a series of lines and other things here that we have. So we have this line work set up for us so that we can go ahead and work right in with our circles. Now the arc command defaults to the 3-point method. It's similar to the 3-point method when drawing a circle. Let me show you by completing some of these things here. So if we go to the Home tab on the ribbon and into the Draw panel, you see here there's a button for the arc. And if we click this flyout, we get a lot of different ways to draw an arc. Typically though, you're going to use the 3-point command. And it creates an arc, as you see here in the example, using 3 different points. And they're numbered 1, 2, and 3. And that's the order in which you create them, 1, 2, 3. So number 1 is first, number 2 is second, and then third is your last. You can start the arc command just by typing in the letter A and press Enter. Now I'm going to complete this thing here. I'm going to snap to my end point. I'm going to type in end. Snap to it. There's my first point. That's where I'm starting from. Now I can click anywhere. So I'm going to click just right here. And as you can see, it holds the first and second point. The arc will always start at the first point and pass through that second point that we picked. Now the arc's shape, its radius, its length, etc., will depend on where I put this third point at. And I can put it anywhere. And as you can see, the arc changes dramatically depending on where that third point is. I'm just going to snap to the end point of here. There you go. And once you create an arc, you can see here that it can be stretched, the radius can be changed, you can do a lot of different things to it. So if I just grip edit here, it'll bulge it out some more. Or I can click and edit here and move it around. I can even change the center. This is like using the move command. Press escape to let go of the arc. So that's the basics of an arc. The majority of the time, that's all you're going to need are those 3 points. I'm sure you noticed when I started the arc command, there was a center option. So when we start the arc command, in the command line, you can see here are some more options. Arc, specify start point of arc or center. So I can start the arc command at the center point. So I'm going to click center or type in the letter C. Now the arc is asking me for the center point. I'm going to pick the end point of this shape here. So that's my center of my arc. And I'm drawing now my start point. So I'm going to click here with my end command for my snap. I'm going to snap to that end point. So it's starting at my same start point I had before, but at this defined radius. So as I stretch my cursor left or right, it draws the circle. Now notice, wherever I start from, by default, a circle or an arc are drawn in a counterclockwise direction. I'll zoom out a little. As I spin around to increase this angle, which I can just pick anywhere, or I can type in the amount of degrees that I want that angle to be, see, it goes in a counterclockwise direction. Now, if I hit the Control key on my keyboard and hold it down, it will toggle to the other direction. It will now go in clockwise. So this is what you have to do. It used to be before in AutoCAD that you had to know where to start to get the right angle in, the right direction. But this is a change that's happened in more recent AutoCAD versions. So this is a really nice thing. So you can create something that goes to the end here. And now it looks like I have this Pac-Man looking shape. So that's a nice little option. This will make your first point the center point of the arc, and it will make you draw all sorts of arcs. So now you have two ways to draw an arc, from a start point to a point in between and then to an end point. Or now you can start at the center and get your start and finish points and at that defined radius. Now, you don't always know these points. That's what's great about the arc command. The majority of what you're going to need for your arc command are the two that I just showed you. But let's look at some of these. They're going to make sense. They're very straightforward. So remember to go to the ribbon, go to the Home tab, and into the arc. If you click on this button here, you'll get a quick definition of how these arcs are going to be created. So we saw the 3-point arc. We also have a start, center, end. This creates an arc using a start point, center point, and an end point. Now, it's a little bit different. So if I click start, center, end, now it's asking me for my start point. So I'm going to snap, type in END to this point here. And I'm going to create an arc that stretches all the way across here. Now it's asking me for the center point. Now, there are options here that I can use in my command line. You may have more tools available to you by following the command line. Right now, it's asking me for the center point. So I'm going to type in CEN to snap to the center point of this arc right here, because I'm going to parallel it. You can see the little O snap coming up. Click it there. And now I'm going to draw my arc. Now, it would come on this side here, but because by default, remember, it starts where you first pick your start point, and then the arc is drawn in a counterclockwise manner. Hit the F3 button to toggle on my O snaps. That way I know I'm going to automatically snap to this endpoint. But I want the arc to come the other direction. So I'm going to press and hold the Control key, and now it toggles the direction of the arc. This makes drawing the arc much more easy. Snap to there, and I've created that arc. I'm going to delete this one so we can see a little better. So I was able to create that arc right there without any issues. I didn't have to make any measurements. I didn't have to know any radius. I didn't have to know where the center point was, no coordinates, no length, nothing. I was able to fill in that arc exactly the way I wanted to. I can do the same thing with these circles here with this same command. So I need to find my start point. It's going to be there. And my center point, which is going to be here. In this case, I'm going to have to hold down the Control key again and snap to right there. And I was able to finish that. It's a very useful command. So if I went with my regular 3-point arc, but I hit C for center, enter again, I'm going to start at this center point, use this for my start point. I have the radius, I have the center point, it's just in a little bit different order, and I can control it again. Very useful. And again, you don't always have all the points you need. So you just need to go through some of these. Another one you have here is the start, center, angle. It creates the arc using a start point, the center point, and you put in the angle. I want a start point. Let's say I'm going to start here. And now it's asking me for the center point of the arc right here. And it's asking for the angle. Now, if I know what that angle is, I can type it in. But if I don't, I can just snap to that point. And there it goes. So a lot of these are variations on a familiar theme or on the same sort of theme. What these commands are doing for you is that they're macros. If I start with the 3-point arc creation command, I can start at an endpoint or I can start at a center point. So if I start at the center point by either typing in the letter C or by clicking on the command line, the center option, I'm now drawing something from the center. I'm going to start from the midpoint of this line. Now I have options. I need a start point. So I'm going to start here at the end point. And now I can just click down here and it draws my arc. I can type in the degrees that I want, or I can go by a chord length. So I can click here for angle or L for length. If I hit L, then it's not asking for an angle anymore. It's asking for a length. And this will give me the length of that chord, which is this line right here. So if you understand how circles are made and you understand the definitions of angle, chord, arc length, etc., you'll be able to use the arc command in a lot of different ways. Now you can also hit a start end direction. So if I click a point here, hit my center point, and then specify an endpoint for my arc, I can do one of these things. This is a nice option if you want to create a bit of a smooth arc. So if I click here, that defines my chord. Now I can come and draw this in a lot of different ways. I can match this line here, and it gives me a nice little symbol. You can do a lot of different things with it. we've looked at several of these different arc commands. This is your standard 3-point. This group uses the start and center and then varies on that. This one uses the start and the end, and then it'll go by angle, direction, or radius. And these here start you at the center point, then go to a start point, and then we'll go by end, angle, or length. So depending on what you have and what you know and what you're trying to create, that will determine which one of these arc creation commands you want to use. Like I said, the majority of the time, your 3-point arc is going to be fine. Now, another command option that you have in here is called the continue. So if you have an arc, just any arc anywhere, made by any of the methods shown, and then you want to continue that arc, but with a different arc, you can use the continue option. What this does is draw an arc tangent to the last arc that you've made, or to another line. So if I click here, you can see this is very sinuous, tangent to each other. If I have a line drawn, and I want to continue that line, but with an arc. So I come up to the arc command here in the ribbon and go to continuous, and it makes an arc that is tangent to that line. Now, when you use all of these other commands and you hit the enter key, it will restart the arc command, but it won't restart any of these special arc commands that you've used. It will only restart this regular 3-point arc command. So in the case of this continuous, if you want to keep using it, you're going to have to keep going back to this continue arc command option. So keep that in mind when you just press enter to restart the arc command. It won't give you your specialized variations of the arc command. It will just give you the basic 3-point arc creation command. And also remember, if you draw it and it's in the wrong direction, that's okay. Press and hold the control key and that will flip it around. That can be very annoying when you're trying to create an arc and you see that, oh, I've done it wrong. That's okay. Hit the control key and hold it down, and that will flip it around the direction, and that'll solve your issue there. There will be many times when you need to create what is called a polygon. A polygon is a multi-sided closed shape. In AutoCAD, it's also a polyline. There is a command called polygon. With this command, you can draw shapes from 3 sides all the way up to 1,024 sides. Typically, you would probably only want to draw about 3 to maybe 10 sides. And there is a case where you want to draw 360 sides, which is essentially a circle. But it's good to know that you have options available to you. You can type the word polygon right on the command line. Or you can use the command alias, which is just POL. It's also found here on the ribbon. Polygon. Now it's very simple. You enter in the number of sides you want. So if you want to draw a pentagon, you would type in the number 5 and press enter. And now you need to pick the center of your polygon. And you have an option, an inscribed in the circle or circumscribed about a circle. So what do those mean? Well, what the difference is and what this means between an inscribed or circumscribed is that we have a circle. Just imagine you have a circle. Let's give it a radius of 5 units. And you want to draw a polygon. We want it to be 5 sides, and the center of your polygon will match the center of the circle. The inscribed method will draw the hexagon inside the circle, and a circumscribed polygon, or hexagon in this case, will draw the shape on the outside. So think inside. As you can see, while I go to pick my point of where I want it, I can type in the radius, which would match the radius of the circle, and I would pick my location. So I can snap with an NEA or a near, and I will pick anywhere on this circle. And there's my pentagon. Now if I start the polygon command again with 5 sides, match the center of the circle, and instead of inscribed, I'll go circumscribed. When I pick somewhere on that circle or use the same radius, the polygon is on the outside of the circle. So those are the two differences. The inscribed will draw the shape, in this case a hexagon, from one of the vertices or the vertex. The circumscribed will pick from the midpoint of one of the edges. So depending on the information you have and what you're trying to draw, that will determine your method of drawing it. Now there's another method as well. And when you put in the number of sides, this option comes up. Instead of picking your center point right away, you can type in the letter E or click on the edge. Now this will draw the polygon in a very different way. It will draw it based on your edge length. So I pick my first point, and that acts as a pivot point for my shape. And now I can type in the distance for that leg or side, and then I can type in the angle. I type in 5 for 5 units, press tab, and I'll type in the degrees, 90 degrees, so this leg will be straight up. And there you go. So you really have 3 different ways to draw a polygon. And you can make it any number of sides. Remember, it can be as few as 3, but no more than 1024. Pick a point, inscribe, and here is my octagon. So there are a lot of different ways to draw a polygon. And a polygon is really just a closed polyline. Once you draw it, it doesn't retain its shape if you grip edit anything. Once I make changes, that shape is no longer what it was when I first created it. Rectangles and ellipses are special forms of polygons in AutoCAD. Rectangles are fairly straightforward, where ellipses can be a bit tricky. But there are still a lot of things and a lot of ways that you can draw rectangles. Rectangles work a lot like the polygon command, except you're stuck with the criteria of a rectangle, only 4 sides. You get 2 parallel sets of sides that are equal. You get to pick 2 points on opposite sides of the rectangle to create your shape. So if we come to the ribbon, and we can find the rectangle command here, and you can kind of get an idea of how you're going to pick it, your first point and then your second point. It's very straightforward and simple enough. That's your rectangle. And then once you select it, it's just a regular polyline that happens to be closed. Now, it is a bit more complicated because you have a lot more options to it than that. If you start the rectangle command, which by the way, you can just type REC on the command line, or the full word rectangle. Now, you have a lot of different options down here: chamfer, elevation, fillet, thickness, and width. Some of those aren't available in AutoCAD LT. But if we pick our first point, we get another set of options: area, dimensions, and rotation. So your first choices will affect your second choices. But as with the line command, you can tell it how big you want your rectangle to be. If I type in 40, the horizontal distance of my rectangle will be 40 units. If I press the tab key and type in 30, now my vertical length will be 30 units. And there you go. And then of course you can always grip edit when you're done. When you start the rectangle command, you have some different options: chamfer, elevation, fillet. We kind of mentioned these before. The chamfer and fillet will work very similarly. A chamfer will automatically chamfer the corners. So let's tell it 4 units by 4 units. Now, whenever we draw our rectangle, you can see the corners will be clipped. And there you go. And this is still a polyline. So if we do the rectangle command again, those settings are still set into AutoCAD. Now to turn those off, we'll have to define a chamfer of 0 units. Or you can even make them to be different. I can tell it 2 units and then 8 units. And you'll get a long clipped chamfer. As you can see, it doesn't do it the same way. It starts and then kind of goes around. Now the fillet command works the same way, only it puts a round corner. Your other options, elevation, which is not available in AutoCAD LT, will draw a rectangle at a certain elevation. So let's say 40. Now it doesn't look any different, but when I go to rotate my view, you can see it's up higher. Now you can't do this in AutoCAD LT. This is only a feature in regular AutoCAD. But that's one thing you can do. Another option is in the thickness. Give it a thickness of 5. And again, as you can see, this is just a 3D shape. It's 5 units tall or thick. Again, not available in AutoCAD LT. And then the last option, the width. We'll give it a width of 5. Now this is an option that's available in AutoCAD LT. That makes the thickness of the line, the global width, just like a regular polyline of 5 units. Now it's also still set to be thick and at an elevation of 50. Whenever you make one of those changes to the settings of the rectangle command, you have to make sure to set them back until, of course, you close AutoCAD or the file and then reopen it. Then it will be reset to the default settings. Now, we saw some other options. Once you start drawing, you have area, dimensions, and rotation. Now, rotation will allow you to draw your rectangle rotated. So you pick your angle by picking a point or typing in the angle you want, and then you draw it in the regular way. And again, you're going to stay that way unless you reset your rotation back to 0 and continue drawing. Now the rectangle command again, with the area, which is kind of interesting. You'd say that you want to have a shape for a swimming pool that is 1,000 units, square units. Press enter. Now, do you want the length or the width? The length will determine the horizontal side and the width will be the vertical. So let's say length. And let's say we want it to be 200 units in length. It will automatically draw it so that it fits the shape. Let's try that again, but with something that works a little better. We'll go area, and then we'll go 1,000 units. We'll go length again. This time we'll say 20. And there you go. Now you have a rectangle with thickness that has a square footage or square units of 1,000 units. So if you're trying to design a swimming pool or a room for your house, and you need it to be a certain square footage, and you know you want one length to be a certain length, then it's very easy to get the other length without having to do any math. And then the last option that we'll show here is the dimensions. The dimension option is very similar to when you entered in the lengths and sides earlier. So you'll just be able to type in the lengths that you want, say 30, and then 50, and it locks it in for you. So the dimension option is a leftover from before AutoCAD had a dynamic input where it was very easy to type in your length and width. So you probably won't ever use that, but I wanted to show it to you in case you were wondering what it was. Now let's clear some of this off. And I want to show you the ellipse command. The ellipse is a little bit different, but it's similar to a circle and an arc in that you have multiple ways to draw them. You can even draw an elliptical arc. An ellipse is essentially an oval, and there are two main ways to draw them. Start the command by just typing in ellipse or EL. The default method is to pick the two horizontal points, meaning the two horizontal axis points. That will define how wide the ellipse will be. Then as you move your crosshairs up or down, you are defining the radius of that vertical arc. And there you go. Now you can edit it with grips again, changing it, moving it, just like any other object. So let's try that again. So you type in EL, and you want to pick your first point, and then your second point. And those are the outer points of the ellipse. And as you can see, you can draw it at several different angles. This one's kind of rotated. Now, the other option is to pick the center first. And then you pick the end, and then you pick the other end. So you can go from side to side or from center to side. That's pretty straightforward. And you can pick the differences here, a center or an arc. The arc, you'll pick 1, 2 points, and then your third point, and then you pick where you want it to start, and then where you want it to finish. And there it is. So let's do that one again. If you come up to the elliptical arc, you're going to create your ellipse. And then you pick where it starts and then where it stops. The elliptical arc works just like the arc command in that it's drawn in a counterclockwise manner. And there you go. So that's the rectangle and that's the ellipse. The rectangle is very simple, but it has a lot of options. The ellipse is a bit tricky because you have to define your axes points or the center point, but it has fewer options available to it. But both are really cool and can make some great designs. In an earlier section, we discussed how AutoCAD uses a Cartesian coordinate system. Sometimes we need to create nodes at specific coordinates, not a line, not an arc, or a circle. These are known as points, and there is a command that you can use that will help you draw a point. Its size doesn't matter because a point, by definition, has no size. It's only a marker or a node for a specific set of coordinates. A good example of using points would be that of a surveyor locating the corners of a piece of property. The nice thing about points is that you can define their display size and you can snap to them. So if somebody gives you a list of points, you can put them in your drawing and draw lines, sort of like playing connect the dots. So let's draw some points. The command is point, or just PO for point. You can also find it in the Draw panel of the Home tab in the ribbon. And you can draw points or multiple points. So once the command is started, you can enter in the coordinates if you know what they are, or you can just pick on your screen. When finished, just press Escape. Now you can see these are tiny dots and they may be difficult for you to see even, but there are some settings that you can use. You can also select them. If you use the Erase command, you can select the objects and press Enter. Now let's put a point in at a specific coordinate. Start the point command, and then let's zoom down here a little bit. So type in the number 5, the tab key, and the 5. So this will put us at coordinate 5, 5, right here. Points are also three-dimensional, but not in AutoCAD LT, just like every object in AutoCAD. If you leave the third coordinate off, it will be drawn at an elevation of 0. So you can now just start by drawing some points randomly on the screen. And they look a lot like dots right now. And if not, that's okay, we'll get into that. So let's add some more. Let's put one at 6, 10. It went up here. And let's just randomly pick some. When you're done, press Escape. Now start the polyline command and type in NOD for your O-snap, which will be a node point, and click on one of the dots. And keep doing that and just connect your dots together. What you're doing now is just plotting out these points and then connecting them by drawing them together with a polyline. And you can make various shapes, etc. Now your points are still there. They didn't go away. They're just hard to see right now. If you want to change the appearance of your points, you can. You'll have to use some different system variables. One of them is called PD mode. By default, it's set to 0, and this changes the appearance. The other one is called PD size, and that's for changing the size. So if we set in 1 and we zoom in, it's still hard to see. If you type PD size, right now the size is set to 0, and that's part of your problem. If we set it to 1, refresh our screen, it's still not working the way we want. That's because these settings are very hard to use. So let's go to something else called DDP type. Press enter. Now we have something we can use. This is a nice little visual style where you can pick what your point looks like. This is a dot, this is nothing. This is a plus, an X, etc. And now you can pick the size. When you're done, you click OK. And there you go. Points you can use. So if we type in the DDP type again, we can change the point size right here. And now they're a bit smaller. You might have to do a regen, REA, regen all, to visualize it. But there's another setting here, set size in absolute units. That will set the size of it and lock it in. So we have it at 0.5 units. So no matter how far we zoom in or out or what scale the drawing is at, it will be 0.5 units in size. Sometimes though, you will use a viewport and you'll have a different scale for your drawing, and so your 0.5 may be too small. So sometimes you may need it to be set to the relative to screen size. Now that will keep it at 0.5 units, but relative to the size of your screen. It's a percentage, not a unit size. So let me show you. If I click OK, they reduce in size. They're at 0.5% of my screen size. So if my screen here is 100%, it's taking half of one of those percents. Now, if I zoom in, it looks like they're bigger, but when I refresh my screen, again, they're smaller. So they stay the same size regardless of where I'm at. Let's pick a different percentage, one that's easier to see. Let's go kind of big. Go 10%. So now you see how big they are. If I zoom in, they stay that size relative to the screen. Now that's very handy when you have a lot of points over a big area and you're changing the scale of your view. But sometimes you do want to lock them in to one size. It's all going to depend on what you're trying to do with your drawing. Now keep in mind that all of these settings for your points will be reflected throughout your file. You can't have some points that look like an X, some points that look like a box, etc. You can't have some points that are, 10 units and others that are 5. It just doesn't work that way. It's unfortunate, but it is a limitation. However, typically you're only going to want to see the points in one way anyway, well, hopefully, but they are limited that way. There's a lot you can do with them, and they're easily imported and exported with CSV files and spreadsheet type files, and surveyors use them a lot. So there are a lot of different things you can do with them, and they give you information that's not lines or arcs. It's one thing to be able to draw lines and circles, but it's another to draw them accurately. That's where O-snaps come into play. O-snaps are one of the key features in AutoCAD that will enable you to draw accurately and precisely. O-snap is short for Object Snap. They force you to automatically draw from a specific point on an object, or to an object, or draw to an object in a specific way. I just want to make sure that you get an introduction to them here, as well as some other methods of drafting. You're going to use O-snaps everywhere. In every way that you draw, you're going to need them. So you need to learn them. In fact, we've already shown you some of them, like endpoint, midpoint, and center of a circle. We're going to look at them in depth in a later section. But right now, I want to make sure I tell you what they are so that when I try to use them even more throughout the rest of the video, you won't be confused or lost. This way, you'll have a much better understanding of what they are and what they do. O-snaps can be turned off and on, or they can be used individually, or a combination thereof. When you turn them on by pressing the F3 button, That is called the running O-snap because your O-snaps are always running. If you look down at your status bar, when you toggle the O-snaps on and off, you'll see in the command line that it tells you that O-snaps off, O-snaps on. This button right here will also toggle your O-snaps off or on. Some people will even go so far as to get a 5-button mouse and program one of those extra buttons in the mouse to toggle the F3 button off and on, which turns the O-snaps on and off on the fly. There are times when they get in the way. There are times, though, when you absolutely have to have them. They make drawing so much easier. So pressing the F3 button will toggle them off and on. And once they're on, they'll be running. And when they're running, I mean like your refrigerator is running type of a thing. They're always on. So let's get a quick demonstration. You draw a line, or any other object for that matter, and you draw another line again. Now since my O-snaps are on, my running O-snaps, when I go to draw a line, I can automatically snap to the endpoint of that line. You see that green box? That's an O-snap glyph. Think hieroglyph. Like ancient Egyptians have hieroglyphics. Well, this glyph will tell you that that is a endpoint. You'll also get a word that says endpoint. That's if your dynamic input is on. If I turn that off by pressing either F12 or clicking on the status bar down here below, I get a little different indication. It's just the green box, and then it says endpoint. So sometimes you may want to turn that off. Now there are other O-snaps available to you besides endpoint. If you type in OS on the command line, press enter. This will open up your drafting settings dialog box. These are all of the object snaps that you have available to you. Whichever ones are checked on will be the ones that are functioning during your running O-snaps. You can select everything if you want, or you can turn them all off. Typically for me, the way I use them is I turn everything on except for nearest and parallel. I really like having all of these other O-snaps on. We'll go over each of them very briefly. This is the endpoint that will snap to the end of an object, like a vertex or vertice on a line. This is the midpoint. It will go to the middle of an object. The center will go to the center point of a circle or arc. A node will go to like a dimension, or a point. Dimensions, we'll talk about them later. They have dimension points, and that's measuring the distance between those 2 points, and that's where the node is. The quadrant will snap to a circle or arc or ellipse or one of those various types of objects, and the quadrant is in the top, the bottom, the left, and the right extreme portions of that circle or arc. The intersection is where 2 objects intersect. An extension will cause a temporary extension of a line or arc so you can continue on its pathway, and then it will take you to some other point. Insertion is if you have a block that has an insertion point, and it will snap right to that point. Perpendicular is very useful. It will bring something, perpendicular to another object. Tangent will draw a tangent line to an arc or a circle. The nearest will pick any point on an object that your crosshairs are nearest to when you click your mouse. That can be very dangerous because you don't know exactly where it's going, but sometimes that's okay. Sometimes you just want to be on the object and you don't really care exactly where it is. So it's useful, but that's why I turn it off, because this will override a lot of things. I'll show you later on. An apparent intersection is where 2 lines would intersect if they continued on, but maybe they've been broken or trimmed or something. And parallel can be difficult to use, but it will make a line, parallel to another object. Now, even though your running O-snaps are on and you're trying to draw something, endpoint, midpoint, or another endpoint here, you can override this at any time just by typing in the short key command for that snap. For instance, endpoint is END. Press enter. Now, once you type that in though, regardless of what you do, it will always snap to an endpoint, even with your running O-snaps are on. If you type in the wrong thing, just click somewhere arbitrarily. Your command is still going, but it clears that out. You can always shift and then right-click to have a list of all of your O-snaps here available to you. You can pick the endpoint, midpoint, intersection, etc. Let me show you nearest very quickly. This is what it looks like. It's going to snap here to any point on this line. And it draws it right to the line. So that's the general idea for O-snaps. We'll talk about them in depth a little bit later on, but we'll really dig down in and deep and show you some tricks that you can use with them. But otherwise, we're going to use them off and on throughout the rest of this video. A drawing in Autocad is nothing more than a series of lines and arcs, polygons, some text, and other things. This chapter looked at drawing most of those objects, and other things as well. So let's make a drawing using as many of those items as we can get through. We aren't going to concentrate on creating an accurate drawing here, not a beautiful rendering or anything, but we just want to learn how to draw. So we're going to make a basic set of plans that we're going to give to a landscape architect so that he can go and create his drawings in order to help us landscape our home. We're going to use the tools and commands that we've learned about in this chapter. So let's start a brand new file, use the new command, and it really won't matter for what we're doing what template file you use, but I'm going to use the acad.dwt file. So I suggest you use the same one, but ultimately it won't matter. We're not even going to draw to any specific units or anything, we're just going to draw. So in this drawing, again, we're going to create a basic, very simple landscape plan view of our home. We don't have any numbers to go by or anything specific, so I'm just going to provide you with those. First, we're going to draw the outline of our house, and we're going to make it with the rectangle command. A lot of times the landscape architect will have nothing more than just the outline of a house to design around. So start with the rectangle command. You can pick it here in the Home tab, in the Draw panel, on the ribbon, or you can type in rectangle or just REC. Now you can pick any point you want in your file here, it won't matter. Pick a point, and now we're going to try to make this house big enough to live in, I guess. We're not sure what our units are, and in this case it really won't matter for our example. So let's just draw the house at 50 units wide, press the tab key, and then draw it 80 units tall or deep, and press enter. Double click the mouse, and there's your rectangle. You can scroll out a little and get a look at it. Nothing fancy, nothing frilly, just a rectangle that is 50 by 80 units. Now we're going to need to draw our roadway, because we have our building and then we have our road that we're going to need. Now if the UCS icon gets in your way, you can right click on it and go to the UCS icon settings and click on the Show UCS icon at origin, and that will turn it off. That will just get it away from showing it at the origin and will show it in the bottom left hand of your screen. It doesn't change your UCS any, but as you can see as we pan around, it just keeps it there. That way it helps us know which way is X and Y, but it gets out of our way for a little bit, which is fine. Now we need to draw the roadway. Start with the line command. It's in the Home tab on the Draw panel, or you can type in line. Just click somewhere below the house. You can start to draw your line. We'll make it at about 400 units long, but we need to draw it perfectly horizontal. So press your F8 key, turn on your ortho, then type in 400, press enter. Press enter again to cancel the command, and there's our road, or at least part of it. Enough representation for our drawing needs. Now let's put the road in here completely. So we will use a new command that I haven't shown you before, but it's right here in the Modify panel on the Home tab in the ribbon, and it's called Offset. Offset will create a parallel line of another line. We just need to give it a distance. We'll type in 20 units, press enter, select the line, and then as you move your line up and down or above or below your source line or the first line you selected, you'll see that there's a preview given. When I click my left mouse button, that's where that line's going to go. Well, we want it below here, so left click, and there you go. Hit escape to cancel out of the command. So we have the house, we have the roadway. Now we need to be able to get from one to the other. We're going to draw a driveway. So we'll start again with the line command. And the line command, as you're going to see, is one you're going to use very often. Hold down your Shift key and right click. This is the O-Snap shortcut key window. find the nearest. It's the nearest O-snap. It's not the one nearest to where you're at. I actually mean literally the nearest O-snap. It's right here. Pick it. And now we're going to be able to start our line right on any of the places we pick from our house. Let's put the garage on the left side here. Left click, and then draw the line. As you see, the perpendicular glyph is on. Our line will be perpendicular to our road, which is what we want. Let's use that offset command again. Type in 12, because we'll make our driveway 12 units wide. Press enter. Select the line, and then offset. And there's our little driveway. Not a big one. You don't like it? That's okay. Let's undo. Use the offset command again. This time, let's type in 20 units. Select the line and left click, and there you go. Press enter. Now let's draw a door. Most homes have a door, and we'll draw it just so that the landscape architect knows where it is. Start your line command again. Type in NEA for the nearest O-snap, or use the shift right click to bring up your shortcut window. Click somewhere on the house here. Let's turn off the ortho command. That's the F8 button. Let's make our doorway. Let's make it 5 units long. Then press the tab key, and let's tell it 30 degrees for the angle, because we want to draw a doorway that's open. Now let's put a little arc in here. A lot of times the doors will be depicted as having a line and then an arc. Use the arc command. We want to use start, center, angle, since we know these three things. Select the command. With our running O-snap still on, I can automatically snap right to the endpoint of this line. That's the start. Now we need the center. If you're not sure of the order of what to do, just follow the instructions on the command line. This is the center line for our arc, because we're going to draw an arc. It starts here at the edge of the door and goes into the building. So pick the endpoint. And now we need to tell it to go to 30 degrees. Now be careful, because drawing to specific degrees can be difficult for Autocad to understand exactly what you mean. As I move the mouse around, you can see that degree number changes. If I am way over here and I type in 30, it may do some weird stuff, or it may automatically work. Be careful with your snaps. Be careful with your direction in which you're trying to look at. Remember, the arc comes, it starts, and then it goes in a counterclockwise direction. So if I wanted this arc to start here, come from here, and then go down, I would have to type in negative 30 degrees. So be careful. If you get some weird thing, just erase it. Remember, select it, then hit the delete key, and then do it again. Remember, the last arc command you used will be the one that's up in this main button area. But we use the start, center, angle, because we have the start point, we have the center point, and we knew the angle was 30 degrees. Double click the scroll wheel, and we have a house, we have a driveway, we have a road, and we have a door. So far, so good. One thing we didn't do though, and it was a major mistake, and I apologize, we have not saved our drawing. If AutoCAD were to crash, or you were to lose power, or your computer were to fail, any of those things, right now you wouldn't have any of this work saved anywhere. So come up to the Save button, click Save. Find a place to put it, and I'm going to save it in my Autodesk 360 folder right here. I'm going to call this a Chapter 5 project, and I had started one before when I was reviewing for this video. So I'm just going to replace what I had before. But you can type in a name, give it whatever name you want, and click Save. Since I already have an older file there, it's saying, hey, there's something there with the same name. And are you sure you want to do this? And I say, yes, I want to replace that old file. If not, click No and give it a different name. Now my file has been saved. I won't lose my work. And since I saved it in the Autodesk 360 cloud, it's saved in the cloud. So my computer could literally blow up and burst into flames right now, and I would not lose my file because it's saved in the cloud. I could access that file, download it from any internet connected computer anywhere, and that's cool. The next step, we need to put in some other items. We have a door, we have a driveway, a road, and we have our building. Let's make a walkway from our door to our driveway. Start the line command, type in near for nearest, come down here, with ortho still on, let's come down 10 units, type in 10, press enter, and then come across the left here. And let's use the perpendicular O-snap. If you don't have the perpendicular O-snap turned on, you can type in PER for perpendicular. Press enter. And there you go. Press enter again. Let's start another line. Type in near. And we'll come down again till it looks good. Well, before we came down at 10. So let's come down to about 15. 15 units, press enter. Then come to the left. Type in PER for perpendicular. Press enter again. And enter one more time. And now we have a little walkway. So we're really putting this thing together. Now the architect knows, hey, here's a building. They have a little walkway, a door, a driveway, and here's the road. So the architect is going to be able to have a great view of what's going on here. Now we want to tell the architect where to put some of the plants. So we're going to need to create a planting area for him. So let's do that. We're going to insert some points randomly just on the left side of the house along the outline here. So we're going to use the point command, which is right here on the ribbon, the home tab, draw panel, and points. So let's put in about 6 of them or so. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. You can put them where you'd like. So there they are. Well, how's he going to see this? That's not real good. So let's type in the command ddptype. ddp type. Press enter. Now let's change it. Let's change it to this one here. Point size of 5% is okay relative to screen. And there we go. These are where he's going to put some of our plants. Now let's make another planting area altogether here. Say, you know what, I really don't like these. So let's select everything and then hit the delete key. Let's go with the point command again. And this time, you know what, he's the landscape architect, or she in this case, it might be. And so let's just tell him an area in which we want everything to be planted. Okay, we'll pick some points then. Pick here, here. Let's say to tell him to just go around the building. When you're done, press enter and escape. Okay, so we want him to go inside here. Well, I'll tell you what, why don't we make it even easier for him, and let's draw a polyline showing him where to go. So with our node OSnap, we will just connect the dots. Pick our first point, turn off the ortho command if it's on, and let's draw our first line. Okay, now we have our first line drawn. Let's draw another. And let's make it fancy. Press A for arc. Press enter. And this will start drawing arcs. To our points. Because who wants a flat square? Okay, now this is going to be a little crazy here. Probably more crazy than what we want. But that's okay because we can edit this. Select the polyline, click that midpoint, and stretch it out. We're going to smooth things out with these grip edits. And if that's the shape you want, then fantastic, then do it. If not, then you can erase all of these and delete them again, or move them around, or just draw a new shape. Now let's say on the right that we want to create a pool area. That's great. So let's draw an ellipse. The ellipse command is in the Home tab on the Draw panel, and it's right here. We'll just do a center. Pick a point, turn on your ortho command, type in 10 for the width, and then type in 20 for the height. And that's a nice little pool. Now, let's draw some stepping stones. Let's say we want to have some stepping stones go from our walkway to our pool area. Let's use our polygon command. A lot of times, stepping stones might be 6 sides. So we'll type in 6 for the number of sides, press enter. In this case, an inscribed or circumscribed polygon won't make much of a difference. But let's make them 1 unit. Press enter. So there we go, we have a polygon. Now what are we going to do? I want to show you another command called copy. Select copy, it's here in the modify panel, in the Home tab, on the ribbon. Select an object, that's our polygon, press enter. Now we need a base point. In this case, it's not going to matter so much, so you can click anywhere. You can even click one of the points on the polygon itself. Turn off ortho by pressing F8, and then just pick where you want it to go. Make a pathway to the pool. When you're finished, press enter. Double click the mouse wheel, and there you go. Now you have a roadway, a house, a driveway, a walkway, a door, a trail of stepping stones to your pool, and a garden area. This is a crude drawing by all means, but it's very basic, and it shows you the types of commands and the tools that you're going to use in AutoCAD all day long. These are the basic things that you need to know in order to make drawings. Later on, we'll show you how to edit this and work with it and make even better drawings.